And congratulations on the film. I've had a chance to sit down and watch it, and I loved it, so congratulations.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate hearing that.
So, mate, tell us a little bit about where this whole journey started for you. What made you decide that this was the next movie that you wanted to make?
Well, I was just really wanting to get away from the kind of standard American formula of 5 or 6 people in a van getting knocked off one by one by a masked killer in the woods. And I've really always appreciated some of the European, especially the Italian horror films from the 70s, and how just different they seemed. And they were creepy in their own right. And I kind of wanted to do something along the lines, more inspired by that. And met with Brian Usna, legendary director, producer of Reanimator, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and a ton of other H.P. Lovecraft films, Necronomicon. So this guy really knows about that. And when I was asking him about subject matter, he said, why don't you look into some of H.P. Lovecraft's works? And that's kind of where this baby got started.
So tell us a little bit about how you went about that. Did you just start to randomly read different bits of Lovecraft's work, or how did you go about doing that kind of research into Lovecraft's work to pick which one would be perfect for you?
I got a big book of a collection of his stories, and a lot of them are so fantastical, and just the description of the alien worlds and the beings that he encounters, that our budget, there's no way we would be able to pull that type of stuff off without looking like a cheap video game. So some of them that happen more on the earthly realm and a house, and I've always been drawn to witchcraft and those types of mysterious things, like the lore, horror, and so that story kind of fits with the whole Walpurg night, the Sabbath, and the missing children, and the rat in the house, and like, wow, this is something we can do. So that's Dreams in a Witch House is why we picked that one.
So tell us a little bit, because we've got a lot of screenwriters who listen to this show, tell us a little bit about that process of then turning that short story into a screenplay. How did you go about doing that, and roughly how long did it take you to adapt it?
Well, we started breaking the story down and some of the characters, and then we thought, Brian had an idea, let's change some of the characters up. Like, let's make, Alice, instead of Walter, make it a female lead. And let's bring some things into the 21st century into it that, weren't obviously in the story that was written back then.
Yep.
So we had to kind of bring it into the 21st century. So there were changes that we had to make. And I feel like that it worked out, most of the time, and trying to get it. So,
did you have big discussions about those changes? Because I know that fans of Lovecraft are very, very passionate, and quite often when you see movies or see television shows come out that's based on his work, they sit down and analyze just about every frame to how it fits with the story. Did you have some pretty big discussions about making those changes?
Yes, we did. We knew that, this is a double-edged sword. We've got the Lovecraft community that's willing to give us a look, but then at the same time, if they feel that we've taken the subject material and just totally but then we'd hear it from them too.
Yeah.
And that's with us doing it with a smaller budget, there was a lot of creative challenges that we had to kind of step around to tell our story. So I hope that, they can see what we were doing with those characters. And, Brown Jenkins, I wanted to make it a creepier look instead of just the typical rat face, a human face on a rat body. I've seen that done, and we don't have the Jim Henson studio to do that. So we thought of a way to kind of make it a more creepier humanoid, guy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You talked a little bit before too about that you've always had that little bit of an interest into witchcraft. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that and how important it was for you to portray witchcraft in the right way in this film, because I have a couple of friends who practice witchcraft, and they always go and see movies that have witchcraft in it and come out of it saying, oh man, they so don't understand the true meaning of witchcraft. How did you go about portraying that correctly on the screen? Because I thought you got that really, really right with this film.
Thank you. Well, a lot of it is the ritual, and I know that we're selling a Hollywood version of witchcraft, like there is a Hollywood version of war films and cowboy stories. Let's be honest, if you were to watch an honest cowboy movie, he's sitting in the desert waiting all day.
Yep.
Nothing's happening, but we only have a short period of time to tell our story, and there's just so much that the outside world doesn't really know about witchcraft, and I think that even calling it witchcraft is kind of unfair because there's so many different sects and groups within it that look at, just life, and I have a spiritual side to myself too, so I tend to kind of want to believe in the supernatural and some of the things that we don't know about, but witches have cured people of diseases with their medicines and stuff, and I'm sure they could equally poison you if they wanted to. So there's always just a kind of the lore behind it, the creepy old crone living in the woods,
Yeah.
That if we got a house, it just seems, wow, how did that happen? And so this is really kind of an interesting story, and I like that Lovecraft, it wasn't one of his more written stories. Even he felt that way. And so there was definitely a challenge to this story because of just what happens in it and how it all takes place. So...
Yeah. Now, the other thing I really loved about this film is the casting. You got the casting 100% right, and you've got strong female characters led, of course, by Alice, played by Portia. How did you go about the casting, and how did you find the cast that you wanted to work with?
Well, Brian, we were running all of our casting through him, just to see what he thought. And he turned down 15 or so really talented actors that we wanted for the lead of Alice. One of them was Michelle, Portia, the one that we ended up going with. But, what's funny is he said no to her, and we just went with our gut instincts and said, let's just get her in front of the camera and see what she can do.
Yep.
And when she did, she's just a beast in her own right. And when she got on camera and we started showing him some of the dailies, he says, I love that girl. And I thought, that's funny. That's one of the girls that you said you didn't like. And I know there's a lot of actors that will say they're horrible at their auditions. They're horrible at auditions, but you get them in front of the camera, then it's a different story. But, Julie Philpott, she has been in a ton of films, and we're really lucky to have her. She played the role of Tommy, Alice's kind of sidekick there in the house. Andrea Collins, Andy Noir, she played the witch, and this is a big first for her to be in heavy makeup because she's typically always out there as the lead, but she did wonderful. God love her for putting all that makeup and stuff on, but it was definitely the contact lenses and everything. It was definitely a challenge for her.
Yeah. Have you ever been through that experience before where you've had to go in and bat for an actress when other people involved with the film have said no, they're not right for the part, but you as a director and screenwriter have felt that actor or actress is right for the part?
Typically, I would have to say this is like the first time where we really had something like this, because in the past with my group, before I had started to work with Brian and John Penny, we would kind of typically do things in our own realm, and we were okay with it. But this time, we were having to look through someone else's optics on what they're thinking from the outside, and I'm glad we did.
Yeah.
It challenged us.
Now, Alice has got such a backstory as well with her abusive past. Tell us a little bit about how you worked with Portia to flesh out that past and get her ready for that role as well.
Well, she just is a lady that comes from a life that is just like very interesting. I kid you not. One second. I'm going to try to see if we can get her on here. Would you guys like to talk with her too?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, would love to.
She gonna send her the link. Sending it. She is a really well-balanced actress. She's been in some films herself. She's worked for Rob Zombie in his haunted houses as Baby Firefly. She's just produced herself. We're working on something right now, so she's really like a jack of all trades. And us having her on board is just awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and come.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how important is that to you as a director, to have an actress that not only understands the part, but is willing to go that extra 110%?
A lot, because I've got to believe it when we're shooting it. You know, it's got to cut past me before other people are going to believe it. You know, sometimes you can find someone for the right role. But sometimes some people are naturals at things, you know. She has a really great way of going. She'll be laughing with you, and when we're ready to start shooting, you can turn around and say, "Oh my God, what did someone say something to you? Are you all right?" She's just getting into character.
Yep.
You're like, that's powerful. I like that. And sometimes someone has to have a particular look, you know, like Joe in the film. Like, he has such a distinct face, like just his features, that it kind of helps sell his character, you know?
Yep.
And you can't find everyone from a talent agency all the time. I know it's tough to say that in the union world, but sometimes you could just say, hey, there's a hobo sitting over there by the train tracks. Man, if you could just come and sit right here and sit there in the frame while our actor walks past, that would be great.
Yeah.
So.
And of course, there's been amazing stories in Hollywood of those kinds of things over the years. I remember a few years ago, I got to interview David Boreanaz, and he talked about the fact that that's literally how he got his role in Buffy. He was walking past where Josh Whedon and Marty Noxon were sitting down having a pre-production meeting over a Buffy script. And I think Josh asked Marty, what do you imagine Angel looks like? And just as it happened, David Boreanaz was walking past walking his dog at the time, and she went, he would look like that guy. And that's literally how he got the role. Like, it's still a way that works in Hollywood a lot.
Yes, I think it's just sometimes things are natural, because films themselves are living, breathing entities, you know. You can follow the script as much as you want, but then you get somewhere and you're like, oh, this room works better, or gosh, he looks wonderful under the light like that. Look at that, you know. It's just sometimes you just feel that it has to imitate life, and if it sends a chill up my spine, that's what I'm hoping I can give the viewer.
Yeah. Now, there's some pretty intense scenes in this film. What was the shoot like itself?
Well, we shot, due to COVID, it broke us up in we were running pretty strong, shooting everything, and then COVID hit, and then it was like you can't travel between states, and a lot of our actors and talent were interstate, so that puts a hold on things for at least 3 months. Then during that time, we were just cutting the film, and thought, we can do things better. Let's take our time with this, and let's do some serious reshoots and rewrites. And so during the 3 months where we weren't shooting, we were rewriting, to where when we got back together strong, we were just reshooting portions of the film that we thought helped drive the story.
Yeah. And did you have any restrictions placed on you? Like, I've heard of films where the entire cast and crew had to stay in the one hotel or stay on set because they weren't allowed to do what they were called contaminating themselves by going back out into the public. Was there anything like that on you guys?
Well, we pretty much policed ourselves because we were in an isolated location. It was an old house that's kind of set off back, you know, away from things. And so we made sure that all talent was in a totally different room outside of the area where they act. The only people that were on camera had their masks off.
Yeah.
Everyone else was masked up. And can you imagine breathing through your mask for 12, 13 hours. It gets quite soggy
Yep.
and gross.
Yeah.
It doesn't even want to stay in your face anymore.
Yeah, we had a rule here in Melbourne where once the lockdowns ended, whenever you went out, you had to wear a mask 100% of the time. So we literally, yeah, like what you just said, you'd walk out your front door. For me, going to work at 6:30 in the morning, and I wouldn't get back until 6 o'clock at night, and I had to keep a mask on for that entire time. It was just an absolute nightmare.
Wow, yeah, you guys had it way more strict than we did. You know, here everyone, you know, people were getting in fights and angry and getting kicked out of stores just for not wearing a mask. But, you know, I think what's funny is the people that argued about that, they surely wore it when they took their families on vacations. They didn't give the people at the airport any problems when they want to go on vacations. They wear the mask.
Yep. That was the same here. We had people that were fighting against that and fighting against having vaccinations, and then as soon as they realized that the only way they were going to be able to eat out at restaurants or to go to cinemas or go to theatre was going to be having the 2 vaccinations, they said there was a huge rush on vaccinations and masks at that time. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Bobby, now that the film is coming out and people are going to get a chance to watch it, how do you feel now as a director? Are you excited or are you nervous?
Both, to be honest. We've been in our own bubble for so long writing the film and, you know, shooting it, and, you know, now the baby's about to come out, you know, and so I'm sure we're going to have people that, because the horror genre is very tough. They're not like the romantic comedy where if they didn't like it, it's like,
Yeah.
Either people are very polarized one way or they are the other. And I can tell you this, that we've gotten a massive response from Europe. We won 17 awards internationally, and a great deal of them are coming from Europe. And the film was designed kind of more artistically, more just with a deeper sense of dread, and it's not, you know, 4 or 5 scantily clad girls get knocked off one by one in a van. That's the American formula.
Yeah.
You know, I hate to say it really is. It's A to B to C to D.
Yeah.
What I like is a long shot of a mysterious man, and the music is so foreboding. You're just like, what does that mean? But it's creepy.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, I wanted to kind of elevate my thinking and just change the game up, not keep following the same thing that everybody else is doing. And if there's a risk to that, then I'm happy for it taken.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you were influenced heavily by Italian horror and European horror. For young screenwriters and young directors that are out there listening to this, are there any films in particular that you would recommend that they go and watch to get a feel for the horror films that influenced you?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I'll tell you one that just stands out right now. When I was a kid, I loved Lair of the White Worm.
Yep.
That film, it just has so many just different sequences. It was not a very big budget film, but it's just the different sequences and how they show, I don't know, it just really stands out in my mind how that woman was a snake woman and they didn't really do a lot of CGI at all. It was all practical and it worked out. I'd have to say, like, House by the Cemetery, you know, Seven Doors of Death, Suspiria is a big influence.
Yep.
Just the music, the soundtracks were really big, you know, and just, I love all the scenery and the places they're going, and it's creepy. There are like independent, like British horror films and stuff that came out in the 60s and 70s, just like there were here in the United States. And some of those are really good. There's a special on about lore, horror, and witchcraft, and it's on Shudder. And it's an amazing documentary. It goes into like The Wicker Man and some of those really good films. That The Wicker Man stood out to me.
Yep.
Majorly, the first one is so creepy.
There you go. For all the people listening, they're the films to go and explore. They are all great films, and like Bobby said, you'll get so much out of watching them. So, mate, I guess to finish off
Michelle, if you had more time, Michelle would be around in 10 minutes if you'd like to chat with her a bit.
Yeah, I was thinking, I can do that, yeah. Did you want to finish off this interview, and then when Michelle jumps on, we'll do that as a separate interview?
Sure, that would be awesome.
Awesome, okay. So, Bobby, I guess to finish off the interview, what would you like to say to people out there who are now wanting to sit down and watch the film?
Keep an open mind, enjoy the visuals, try to get a sense for, like, believing in the unknown, the things that are lurking out in the woods, beyond what you think you know. That's the stuff that makes me shiver at night, the ghostly apparition that was, in the house, or, because we did experience some supernatural stuff shooting this film. We actually had some of the women that were on set were burning some herbs around us to protect us from trying to either summon something up or, cause harm to ourselves in ways we don't understand. So just really look deep in the corners of your mind for those things that go bump in the night, and I hope that we touch on some of those.